Greetings and welcome back to another podcast episode of Viewing Different Cultures Through an Anthropological Lens with Dr. Caitlin Jackson. Today we'll be talking about a specific ethnic group that is known for being the highest proportion of native-born members in comparison to other racialized groups in Canada. In addition, this ethnic group has the highest intermarriage rate of any Canadian racialized group. Lastly, this ethnic group has a long history of immigration with multiple nations, such as the United States of America, Hawaii, Brazil, Singapore, and Peru. This ethnic group is, drumroll please, Japanese Canadians. Throughout this podcast, I will be discussing my chosen image of Japanese Canadians in two separate topic discussions, which will go as follows. The first topic discussion I will be focusing on is who are the individuals in the photo and what is the significance of the Japanese Canadian Buddhist Church in Toronto. As for the second topic discussion, I will be focusing on an audio clip from the Japanese Buddhist Church in Toronto. Lastly, throughout my podcast, there will be random yet interesting facts that I touch upon that correlate to my chosen image. The image that I chose to do today's podcast on is a group portrait of Japanese Canadian men who went to the Toronto Buddhist Church during 1998 by using keywords from the image such as Sambutsuge, page 12. I was able to begin my research via the Japanese Canadian Cultural Archival website, which led me to my chosen image, which has a description accompanying it, which states as follows. A group portrait of Toronto Buddhist Church, Toronto, Ontario, 1998. This image shows a group portrait of Toronto Buddhist Church Sangoa Community Congregation, who are over 70 years of age in 1998. The photograph was taken in 1998. The church was located at 918 Bathurst Street, Toronto. There are two rows of members. The first row is 10 people sitting on chairs, and the second row is standing. In the center of the first row are two young men dressed in white robes with red obi and sashes over their left shoulders. Most other men are wearing a suit and tie. Many of the men have around their necks a black and gold colored ceremonial or commemorating neckpiece. The neckpiece seems to be made of fabric and cord. The photograph appears to be taken inside of the Buddhist church. The floor is wooden with a maroon carpet running down the middle. At the back appears to be an altar space with white banners with black Japanese characters written on them. With gold and red embellishments, flanking the large white banner in the center of the church are two smaller banners. On the wall of the church read several signs. The one on the right says Sambutsuge, page 12. The one on the left says Shinshu Shuka, page 69. Below that sign is another, but several men block it from being legible. The ceiling of the building is made of wood and arches up to form a triangle shape. Together, there are 37 men in this photograph. Before I get into the topic discussion, I have a few interesting facts. The first fact is about the Toronto Japanese Buddhist Church and how it came into existence. This fact is from Many Petals of the Lotus by Janet McLillan, which goes as follows. The first building committee of the Toronto Buddhist Church raised $25,000 within a short time. The money was raised in a traditional Japanese style with pledges of $7,000 from over 200 heads of households. The pledges were considered a family membership in which sons and wives were automatically included, and $18,000 pledged from 7 representatives of 3 contributing groups. As executives, these individuals initiated and organized the fundraising among their respective groups. After a series of inappropriate purchases of existing buildings, it was decided that the ideal place would be one built from the ground up. The building of Toronto Buddhist Church would be accomplished. As for the second fact, it is about the current Japanese population in Toronto. According to Statista, it states the following. As of October 2022, approximately 18,000 Japanese residents lived in Toronto, the highest amount of the past decade. In the observed time frame, the size of the Japanese population in the city has been growing almost each year, starting at less than 11,000 expats only 10 years ago. That was taken from Statista Research Department, and this was collected on March 10th, 2023. Now that I have just went over the context of my chosen image, I will be talking about the individuals in the photo and why they are relevant. I will be stating the given names from left to right, beginning with the first row. As for the individuals whose names are not provided on the Japanese Canadian Centre online or Carvel website, I will refer to them as unknown. So for the first row, we have Ed Yoshida, then we have unknown, Harry Shota Kondo, then we have Reverend Grant Ikuda, then we have Reverend Nishiaki, Jack Shimutsu, Tom Shimutsu, Roger Tanka, and Jim Isozaki. As for the second row, we have Joe Tehera, Hiri Yonekura, Toyoi Takara, Tengoto Teruji, Kamiyo Kawazuki Chi, the other one unknown, then Mitsumiya, Harold Morishita, the other one unknown, Dave Azu, Mas Tsuruko, Tada Ebata, Jack Ohara, Bob Hikida, Tak Uida, Jerry Kawauchi, and Takio Yoshida. Lastly, in the third row, we have Tomio Nishikawa, Kuniya Suyama, John Tahara, Joe Miyazaki, the other one unknown, Edward Tsuzuji, Jake Yoshida, Roy Sato, Hank Nishirumura, and Tukuji Suyama. All the previously named individuals are relevant individuals to the Japanese Canadian community in Toronto because these individuals aid to preserve Japanese religious customs and beliefs in Canada by attending weekly gatherings at the Japanese Canadian Buddhist Church in Toronto, which holds great significance according to the novel Many Petals of the Lotus by Janet McClellan, which states the following. The history and experience of Japanese Canadian Buddhists is unique. Excepting First Nations people, no other religious and ethnic minority in Canada has suffered as much legal discrimination and racism. The relocation and internment of more than 23,000 Japanese Canadian in British Columbia and their forced resettlement in eastern Canada following the Second World War, destroying long-established community bonds and networks. Jodo Shinshu Buddhist organization was severely disrupted and altered, losing its position as a community institution. Throughout this process, Japanese Canadian Buddhists rapidly reinterpreted and redefined their identities as Japanese Canadians and as Buddhists. Now, from my own personal understanding, the Japanese Canadians that did not convert and or assimilate to the Anglo-Christian lifestyle went through more challenges, especially having a gathering at a church that has no ties to Christianity. Nonetheless, the Japanese Buddhist Church in Toronto has great significance for Japanese Canadians as a symbol of resilience and cultural preservation. Now that I've just discussed the first topic discussion, I will be moving on to an audio clip from within the Japanese Buddhist Church in Toronto to give listeners an authentic feel of the experience of being present in the Japanese Buddhist Church in Toronto. The following audio is from Tozen Bukyo and is on YouTube titled Toronto Buddhist Temple Kansho ritual bell and was published on December 16, 2013. The previous audio clip is of a man within the Japanese Buddhist church in Toronto, ringing the Kancho ritual bell, which comes with a description below that states, in the Jodo Shinshu tradition, the Kancho, also known as the Gyoji Sho ritual bell, is struck with a wooden mallet to a predetermined number, intensity, and spacing of strikes. Striking of the bell is done in a pattern of 7-5-3. The bell is struck 7 times, followed by a crescendo and a decrescendo, struck 5 times, followed by another crescendo and decrescendo, then struck a final 3 times. It is rung immediately before the start of a ritual or service to call the Sangha to the temple. The bell sound also prepares those attending the ritual that the minister is about to begin the service, and also lets the priest know to enter the Nashin, or inner altar area. Now I'll be moving on to the final few facts of this presentation. The first fact I'll be talking about is the traditional clothing that Japanese Buddhist priests wear, and for my second interesting fact, I will be going over a bit about the origin of the Buddhist religion. In the meantime, I will quickly reference back to my chosen image in which the 2 reverends at the center front are wearing traditional clothing. According to Rhode Island School of Design Museum, the traditional clothing in which Japanese Buddhist priests wear are robes that are called kessa. Their website states the following. The kessa is a rectangular robe or cape worn draped over the left shoulder by Japanese Buddhist priests and fastened on the right shoulder. A smaller companion piece known as the ohi is passed over the free right arm and across the chest under the kessa. Although the form of the kessa is relatively simple, its manner of construction and the symbolism connected with its various parts provided an intriguing insight into the changing philosophical and aesthetic mores of priestly Japanese Buddhist culture. The central field of the kesa is built up from 5, 7, or 9 vertical stripes of fabric in a patchwork construction that ensures subtle gradations of tone, color, and depth that are further enhanced when the robe is in use and subjected to changing patterns of lighting. As for the religion itself, according to AsianSociety.org, which states the following: Buddhism is a religion that offers a spiritual path for transcending the suffering of existence, samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth to which all beings are subject, result from the consequences incurred by one's karma. The sum of good and bad actions that accumulates over many lives. Release from this endless cycle is achieved only by attaining enlightenment. The goal for which Buddhists strive, a Buddha enlightened one, is an all-knowing being who has reached that perfect state of transcendent knowledge in which the fires of greed, hate, and delusion are quenched, and upon passing into nirvana, blowing out to become extinguished, is never subject to rebirth again. According to tradition, the founder of Buddhism was born in 563 BCE in the region that is now known as southern Nepal. He was born a prince named Siddhartha, he who achieves his goal, and also known as Shakyamuni, sage of the Shakya clan. Siddhartha left his palace, renouncing his princely life, and set out to find the cause of human suffering. He became a wandering monk. After years of searching, he found his answer, his awakening, and proceeded to teach others. When he died, he attained nirvana, the final release from earthly suffering, and became the Buddha, the awakened or enlightened one. After his death, the Buddha's teachings were written down by his followers, who spread his message. These texts are called sutras. An organized religion began to take form, and with time, new branches of Buddhism emerged. Now I will be concluding my podcast by briefly going over everything that I discussed throughout my podcast, and I will be giving a brief personal conclusion. For starters, I began with my intro by explaining my discussion topics and giving a few interesting facts about the Toronto Buddhist Church. Then I went into discussing my first topic discussion, which was who are the individuals in the photo and what is the significance of the Japanese Canadian Buddhist Church in Toronto. After that, I went on to the audio clip from the Japanese Buddhist Church in Toronto, in which I gave insight on the Kancho bell and its purpose. Following that, I began to talk about the clothes in which Japanese Buddhist priests wear and the origin of the Buddhist religion. To conclude, for this assignment, the course idea that is influential to the development of my project is cultural relativism, as this project really requires an open mind to understand and appreciate the experience, culture, and history of the Japanese Canadian community. Furthermore, when it comes to researching one's personal ethnic background, it may be more exciting as the research correlates more to the individual. However, this project allows for individuals to develop and further progress in the field of anthropology with keeping cultural relativism in mind, which is why this assignment was a success for me because I was not ethnocentric, and I acknowledge that I have the opportunity to learn about the experiences, contributions, and history of other cultural backgrounds other than my own. Through keeping the concept of cultural relativism present in my mind throughout this assignment, I was able to gain knowledge on the Japanese Buddhist Church in Toronto. As well, I now better understand the significance of the Japanese Canadian people to Canada's overall multicultural identity. Nonetheless, this assignment is an effective way for anthropology students to practice cultural relativism, improve research skills and technique, and learn about the rich Japanese Canadian culture, experience, and history. Well, that is all for now. Thank you for your time. I hope you learned something new today about Japanese Canadians, especially the Japanese Buddhist Canadians who live in Toronto.